Rennie Good was a gifted soul, a writer and a poet and a mother, wow. She tried to hit an agent with her car, oh no! Pop, motherfucker, now she's gone! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Being a fucking liberal is a mental disease. Blue-haired and fuckables with the septum ring. You are not a hero, you're a fucking disease! You fuck around and find out it's what it is! Jeffrey Pretty was a Jewish homo. Started talking shit to protect a chomo. He was getting nicked when he pulled a gun. Bam, motherfucker, now you're gone! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Being a fucking liberal is a mental disease. Blue-haired and fuckables with a septum ring. You are not a hero, you're a fucking disease! Fuck around and find out what that is!
Hey guys, welcome to the program. Yeah, I'm calling it casual. Are you cold where you are? You got ice and snow, or you got spring or warmer weather yet? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back in time. That's why I'm casual. I don't talk a lot in this one. We're going to go back in time to the 1958 blueprint to destroy America. Because I believe history is the greatest teacher. It's true. It's why they stopped teaching history in school. By the way, today's program is brought to you by the fine folks at Goldco. That's why I partnered with them. I'm asking you to go to jovanlovesgold.com and request your free gold and silver kit today, because now is the time to protect your money with gold and silver. Please, please. You got to do something. I've been telling you for years, and here it is. The digital dollars are coming. There will be an adjustment. I'm worried about it. Governments have done this before. Gold and silver are a perfect hedge that the government, can't just decide, it's not worth $5,000 an ounce or $4,000 an ounce or $3,000 an ounce. It's $80. Just cover yourself, okay? Please. That's all I'm asking of you. And I do have to tell you, I'm exceptionally concerned. Where Supreme Court stuff, mail-in ballots, all that great stuff, people are finally, think about how damn long it's been here. President Trump knows what's up, and he knows what's going on with the mail-in ballots and that stuff. And you saw Sheriff see 650,000 ballots in Riverside, California. It's ballots. It's always been ballots, period. If you need to understand how this war is being fought, and kind of why I'm the most hated man in the room, is the system spent billions to convince you it's the machines. And you know the difference. And you know there is no enforcement in the machines, right? You know there's zero enforcement in the machines. And so you see the system screaming about it, trying to promote, it's the machines, it's the machines, it's the machines, it's the machines. But you see the president and the true enforcement side working on the paper, mail-in ballots, voter rolls. We're making a difference, but it's only because you speak up. I'm still terrified. And if, in case you didn't know it, and you're new to my program, Obama was the messiah of the Democrat Party. You do remember that back when Obama came in, Hillary was leading. And it was on the floor of the National Convention. On the floor of the National Convention back then for Democrats. When Hillary's going to accept the party nomination, out of nowhere came Barack Obama, and it was it. Most people don't even remember that. It was a hot swap on the floor. Imagine what it took and how much power is behind that to get Hillary to stand down from her long-term goal of being the party's nominee, to stand down way back when, right, in 08, to stand down. How much money had to change hands and how much she had to be afraid of what she heard because nobody got Hillaried and they swapped. It was planned. Obama was at that time elected 69 million votes, his second term, which is crap. It wasn't legit, but 65 million votes. Hillary against Trump, 65 million votes. And we got the Biden FU finger, right? 81 supposed million votes, gets back to normalcy with Kamala. But in these 15, 16 months past that election with Trump, will Trump in now, they've been quietly adding in the voter rolls. The machines haven't been continually running. I just want to let you know, those voting day machines haven't been continually running for 16 months, and that's why it happened. She's now over 75 million votes. Understand. It's the paper that makes the difference, and the system's been yelling and screaming, blah, 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 blah. This is why we have to make sure this information survives. That's how epic, good and evil this battle is for the full forensic archives. We have to make it, folks. It all has to stay outside, pure, uninfluenced. Trump can't swing in and do it. That is not how it happens in laws, in court, because they'll say it's tainted because he did it and it's partisan. You have to understand all the freaking rules. This is up to us, the people. And if we, the people, don't get involved, show our voice, and save this stuff, then we're going to get different stuff. Speaking of different stuff, have you ever been to a marathon? Let me show you a marathon in the UK. Beautiful streets, goes to the neighborhoods. If you've ever been there, it's kind of like, our New York City Marathon. Here's the running of the marathon recently in the UK. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot. That is the marathon. That is the marathon. And people were running and people were gathered on the streets to watch the marathon. What you saw is the water stations for the runners so they can keep them hydrated along this marathon, and all of the poor people coming from other countries that need help. Yeah, they were raiding and stealing the water supplies all along the route, called in their friends. They're robbing the water supplies for the runners. So let me wipe that from your memory. Let's go back to that same street, since today's program is going to be historic in nature. Let's go back a couple of streets over to that same place, and let's look at what this looked like. A family dinner in the streets, kids' birthday party, celebration, right, in 1945.
Blue sky smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see.
Little did they know that their kids and their grandkids would be so incredibly blessed, enlightened, equal with diversity. Yeah, clean cut families, everybody liked each other. One culture, their culture, right? Everybody going to get together, have a little birthday party. But the system somehow convinced, no. That's bad. That's white supremacy. We have got to culturally enrich the UK. Mere blocks, few decades, etc. And then understand what's going on. We were sold this bit, right? And we're going to get to this blueprint. You're going to hang tight. We're going to make it easy. Thank you for the second thumbs down. Hey, the most thumbs down I've ever gotten on a single broadcast is 12. Right? Thousands and thousands and thousands of views, but 12 thumbs down. And I know I got the one thumbs down just before the program began, and I know it gave you time to log into your other account to give me another thumbs down, and I know it'll take a bit for you to log off and log into your other account and hide your back trial. But I'm asking you, please, do you think we could break that record of 12 thumbs down? I'm all about breaking records, baby. It'd be like fucking great if I could get like 100 thumbs down. It'd be awesome. And so I just want to know, I appreciate you guys for being so consistent and being here watching me every day when you hate my existence. Anyway, and I know you fucking Jews. One of the stories they spread in this cultural enrichment now is all this shit about Zionism. Let me play this ditty for you.
I swear I cannot make this up. I had the most unhinged conversation with somebody last night. So I'm out. This guy comes up.
Oh, yeah. I want to let you know. If you want, just unclick thumbs up and click thumbs down, baby. In fact, do you think I could do a broadcast? Let's follow the idiots that give me a thumbs down before we start. How about I ask y'all to do this as a favor for me? Will you immediately go in and unclick your thumbs up? And will you give me a thumbs down instead? Because this person's been so consistent with my broadcast. Give me a thumbs down even before start. I would like everybody to just join in the inclusion. I'm serious. Unfucking do these thumbs up, man. Give me a thumbs down. It's the new fucking trend. Let's go with these guys for the trend. Anyway, here you go. Another one of the rigs going on.
I swear I cannot make this up. I had the most unhinged conversation with somebody last
By the way, thank you. People are really doing it. I want you to undo the thumbs up. Watch this. I'm gonna undo even that. Fucking A. It's growing. We're at 11. We gotta beat 12. I want a program with nothing but fucking thumbs down. Because I tell you what, I don't want to leave out the idiots that hate me as a Jew, as an educator, and everything else. I want to show solidarity with idiots. And the way we're all going to show solidarity with idiots is I want to earn a program that is nothing but fucking thumbs downs. Let's do it. Anyway, let me show you part of this conspiracy going on that's ruining society. We're going to get to our blueprint.
I swear I cannot make this up. I had the most unhinged conversation with somebody last night. So I'm out. This guy comes up.
Oh my God. We're at 30 fucking 2 thumbs down. You guys are the bomb. Let's get it 100% thumbs down. Let's join the guys that always make sure they give me thumbs down, but even before, let's get to 100%. Let's show these people that are sitting in mama's basement, in their dirty whiteys, watching porn, eating Cheetos, and then they look down at their wanker and it's orange and they call mama freaking out thinking they've got some sort of disease. Let's show solidarity with these folks. We're thinking about you. We love you. You're human too, and you have a right to exist. So as homage to the orange wankers of the basement crowd, let's go for 100% thumbs down. Anyway, I won't interrupt again.
I swear I cannot make this up. I had the most unhinged conversation with somebody last night. So I'm out. This guy comes up to me. He starts talking. It comes up that my family's originally North African Jewish. And he's like, oh, so are you a Zionist? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm a Zionist. He's like, oh, so you're one of those satanic Jews. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Excuse me? He's like, Zionists, those are the ones who worship Satan. I'm like, you literally have no idea what Zionism is. You need to stop listening to Nick Fuentes, okay? And he's like, yeah, no, the Rothschilds and stuff, they're all the ones who just worship Satan. I'm like, do you know what the definition of Zionism is? And he's like, yeah, that's what it is. And I'm like, no, Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people have a right to their land, Judea, which is now Israel, where they are from, that they have a homeland. That is what Zionism is. And he's like, no. He's arguing with me. I'm like, you're really going to argue with a Jewish person about what Zionism is? I'm like, you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, conversation settles down a little bit. And he goes away, comes back up to me. And clearly this guy's intoxicated. I'm not. I don't drink. And he starts mentioning it again. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, let me just explain to you what exactly Zionism is. And, why someone like me is a Zionist, because my family was originally from Algeria and Tunisia. And he's like, I don't want to know. He's like, I don't want to talk about that. I just don't want to know. I'm like, so you don't want to educate yourself, but you're going to go around claiming things and not want to understand what you're talking about? And he's like, yeah, I just don't want to know. I'm sorry. That is some straight up liberal stuff. That is what you see on the college campus videos when people are like, oh, here, let me, what are your thoughts on, voter ID? And then they think they have a gotcha moment with you and you're like, actually, no, I got you. And then they walk away. That's what I felt like. I was like, I wish I would have filmed this because it was gold. And I'm like, you just don't want to know. I'm like, stop listening to freaking Nick Fuentes. Stop listening to Candace Owens. Educate yourself. Take 2 seconds of your life to educate yourself. It takes no time to do a little bit of research. And then maybe you won't walk around like a drunken idiot claiming that all Jewish people are satanic, devil worshippers. I'm sorry, but I swear the woke right is just as dumb as the woke left.
I like how she did that because she thinks she was, talking about leftists. No, she was talking about the right. By the way, guys, we have broken our all-time record for thumbs down. 47 thumbs down. 47. And in case, this is on Rumble, by the way. I'm asking everybody, go undo your thumbs up because we want to show equity and inclusion and love for the automatic thumbs down we get when we begin the program, and then when the guy changes his account, go to his other account, and then with that, and then when the message goes, I want to show them love. I want to show them love. I want to show them that we care, that they're here every damn day. And so in solidarity for all of those suffering in Mama's Basement, please go to Rumble, give my program thumbs damn down. All you got to do is click it. I know you did thumbs up. Just click thumbs down by now and give us a thumbs down. Let's break our, fucking A. We're at 57 thumbs down. God bless you guys. I love you. You have answered the call of supporting miserable people out there where I get that thumb down before I start. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. You know what the net result is going to be. Come on, let's keep it going, baby. I want more than just 57. Our record used to be 12. We've busted the shit out of that. I want to let you know, thumbs down makes people look. And this is so important. You got to look. By the way, let me wash your palate. I know I told you about the kid who gives the thumbs down. Maybe he's running for governor some way. Anyway, gives a thumbs down, sitting in Mama's basement in his tidy whities, staying tidy whities, kind of smoking nicotine-colored tidy whities, eating Cheetos, watching porn, playing with himself, and then all of a sudden he looks down and his winker's orange, and he's freaking, Mama, I've got something. There's something wrong with me. Show solidarity. Show solidarity. 63 freaking A, guys. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you for showing that, these people that live every day just to give hate and thumbs down, let them know they're not alone and that we support them too and their freedom of speech. Okay, I'm going to clean your palate before we get started with just a little bit of laughter, and then we're going to get into this, the 1958 blueprint to destroy America. You're going to want to share this. We're going to get started right after this.
I've been laughing for 15 minutes straight. I'm going to show you a video, and then I'm going to show you the comments.
Yeah, dude, I said I wanted a mullet, and this is what the barber gave me. I don't think this is a mullet.
Look sick, my lord. Maybe they didn't hear you correctly. How many shillings did you pay for that cut? Did you specify which century you wanted them on from? Tomfoolery in the front, knavery in the back. Do you know the muffin man? Okay, Judge Eagle-Heimer Schmidt. He gave you the 1-2 buckle my shoe special. Go to the Renaissance Fair immediately. Got the little Debbie. Did you go to the barber 7 years ago? It's honestly not that bad. It's substantially worse. And you just river dance without saying the word. The bangs are a little short, but other than that, I hate it. What does your barber do for a living? You headed to your shift at the Lollipop Guild. Is going to be okay, Hansel.
Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County Full Forensic Audit Archives survive. Donate now.
Warning. The
following program has been rated Gilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians, the elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused, emotional socialist snowflake crowd? Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema, freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. He's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics. They all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.
Okay, guys, we're going to travel back and take a look at the 1958 blueprint to destroy America. We are at 73 thumbs down. Yes, I'm asking in a special request, go undo your thumbs up and give me a thumbs down. I hear you. People are saying I've never given a thumbs down before. You know what? Outside of what I just did for myself, too, I haven't either. I haven't either. And I kind of think it's a leftist thing. I hate you. I hate. So they want to scream hate so bad. They want to get thumbs down. That's why we did this, because I get them even before I start. But like most of you, I've never given something a thumbs down. Period. If I didn't like it, you know what I did? I didn't engage with it. I just freaking went somewhere else and found something else. So we're going to break this record, biatches. We're at 73. Let's kick the shit out of it. Go undo your likes. And let's make this the most thumb down thing in the world, because people will look at it. And that's my point. We want people to understand this. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to go back in time. Let's see. Maybe I'll do it like, no, let me see. I want to make it more pleasant to your viewing eyes. Oh, maybe darker. Maybe that. Here, we'll just do gears, a little more passive. We're going to go back in time, and we're going to look at what was the blueprint, and it's being talked about. How can basically America be destroyed? I am not going to comment. I'm going to do my best not to comment. I am not going to comment. We're going to watch this together, right? Texas Liberty says, I've never even tuned into a podcast I don't like. Think about that. Somebody actually lives to give me thumbs down. What a waste of time. You're right. Who turns into something they don't like just to give them a thumbs down? Anyway, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch this presentation. I believe going back in time is valuable. For me, when it comes to even getting books, especially reference or educational books or history books, I don't want any of the modern shit. It's political. It's horseshit. I'm going to go back and I actually try to find a book pre-1930s. You're relatively safe pre-1950. But I go back, 1930s or further back, when people cared about it being accurate, right? 78 thumbs down. Guys, you are the bomb. Let's try to get rid of all of those thumbs up. Anyway, before it became political bullshit almost every day, no matter what. And so we're going to go back in time, because we should go back and see these things. And in many times you'll see things people are still doing, people are still claiming, that hasn't been dealt with or hasn't changed. So with no further ado, Let's go back in time. By the way, you can comment. I'll put your comments on the screen.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the real substance of this evening's program. Mr. Welsh is going to deliver a speech in two parts. The first part of that speech is a condensation of the Blue Book entitled 15 Years Ago, exactly as it was delivered at the 15th birthday dinner of the John Birch Society in New York on December 7, 1973. Then the second and shorter part of Mr. Welsh's total speech is entitled, "And 15 Years Ahead." It will round out the total presentation, which he has epitomized under the heading, "In One Generation." To give you the proper setting for this dramatic offering, we are going to call on Mr. William J. Grady, who for a great many years was president and then chairman of the board of Grady Foundries, a highly successful business with 8 plants today, which he established over 50 years ago. At one time, he was also both president and then chairman of the J.I. Case Company, which is one of our country's very sizable corporate industries. Mr. Grady is a former president and then chairman of the board of the National Association of Manufacturers, and a former president of the National Council of YMCAs of the United States. But today, being as near to total retirement from business responsibilities as a man of his dynamic character can become, Mr. Grady is, and for many years has been, chairman of the executive committee of the John Birch Society. What's more, Mr. Grady was himself present at the founding meeting of the Society in Indianapolis on December 8 and 9 of 1958. We are also pleased to have some others from that founding meeting at our head tables here tonight. We have asked Mr. Grady to set the stage for the first part of Mr. Welsh's speech. So it is my great pleasure to present to you a truly wonderful American, Mr. William J. Grady.
Ladies and gentlemen, having known and admired my friend Bob for more than 10 years before the founding of the John Birch Society, this is an opportunity, and I might say a temptation, to use more time than is allotted to me to introduce this really good friend and great patriot. But my function here tonight is to ask you to join us as stage properties, if you wish, to a performance of 15 years ago. We want you to go back in your minds to the outlook at that time, and in that mood to constitute yourselves as the 11 men, of whom I was one, who sat and listened for 2 full days to an exposition of what was happening to our country and what was going to happen unless we woke up and did enough about it. This meeting was at the home of Miss Marguerite Dice in Indianapolis. A picture of her home is on your program. As you look at this picture, the front right-hand corner is the living room where our 2-day session occurred. Of the 17 men that were originally invited, 11 had accepted, and every one of those 11 showed up, despite the fact that the weather was about the nastiest and sleetest that December can produce. And both major airlines which served Indianapolis were on strike. Not one of us had ever met or even seen Miss Dice before, nor had Mr. Welsh. although he and she had become very good friends by mail because of her outstanding patriotic efforts. And on learning about the proposed meeting, she had volunteered her home and hospitality for the group. Incidentally, Miss Dice, with her very friendly servants taking care of the coffee breaks and luncheons and other needs of hospitality, and with her own chair drawn up out of sight of the group in the corridor just around the corner from the door of her living room, had listened to most of the whole two-day discussion without any of us being aware of it. And she was not favorably impressed, as she told Mr. Welch on taking him to his plane Wednesday morning. She did not think that anybody would ever stand still for the thoroughness with which we intended to examine every problem. Within 2 or 3 years, however, she had completely changed her mind and had become an ardent life member of the society for the rest of her days. Mr. Welch had arrived on Sunday, so by Monday morning he and Miss Dice had borrowed from the local church a full-sized podium and had set it up in one corner of her living room. They'd also arranged all of the chairs and sofas for exactly where each of us was to sit. At 9:45 that Monday morning, therefore, when everybody had arrived despite the weather and had been duly seated, the meeting got underway. Or as your editor puts it, a trembling boy, 58 years old, having screwed up his courage to the requirements of this ordeal, went to the podium and installed himself immovably from behind it for 2 days. This is the nearest, Bob says, that he ever came to being a preacher of the gospel, although he had taught Bible classes in college for over 40 years before. In any event, he was still wondering what would be the reaction of these extremely busy men to what they were going to hear, after having committed themselves to 2 full days plus travel time to come and hear it. But with all practical escape now cut off, Bob Welch finally plunged into that marathon monologue on which he'd been working during most of October and November, and which eventually was to become the Blue Book of the John Birch Society. You are going to hear that monologue tonight, compressed into about 1/10 of its former volume. But this condensation has been accomplished by a very careful selection and pulling together of phrases and sentences from the original text, so as to carry the main thread of thought from the beginning to the end. Now, naturally, a great deal of the documentation, background, and explanation with regard to many of the points will have to be omitted. The fact that there have been such omissions will be indicated by Bob by an occasional aside during the first 2 or 3 minutes of his speech. But after that, he will assume that you are taking them for granted. But no transitional or connecting phrases or sentences will have been added at any point. This is from the original text. So we ask you to keep constantly in mind that all of the statements you hear were made 15 years ago, and that every one of them is verbatim from the original presentation. So now we again ask you to remember or imagine that you are an audience of 11 men sitting in a living room in Indianapolis on December 8th and 9th of 1958 and listening to Mr. Robert Welch. Bob.
Gentlemen, let me welcome you to Indianapolis. All of you, I believe, are already aware of my appreciation for your being here. At this point, there's an omission of 5 lines. But each of you also felt that you would not have been asked to give up everything else and come to this meeting, and then to listen to my voice off and on for so much of the 2 days, unless I had some very serious matters to put before you and proposals to discuss. Frankly, the matters are serious and the proposals are far-reaching, so much so that just their presentation makes me feel solemnly humble at the size of the task envisioned. For increasingly, before tomorrow is over, I hope to have all of you feeling that you are taking part here and now in the beginning of a movement of historical importance. But long journeys start with easy steps, and our first step should be to identify our fellow travelers. No pun intended. Many of you are known to each other, but some are not. So let me, as informally as possible, introduce each one to the group. This was then done, and here we also omit 1 page. Our immediate and most urgent anxiety, of course, is the threat of the communist conspiracy, and well, it should be. For both internationally and within the United States, the communists are much further advanced and more deeply entrenched than is realized by even most of the serious students of the danger among the anti-communists. I personally have been studying the problem increasingly for about 9 years, and practically full-time for the past 3 years. And entirely without pride, but in simple thankfulness, let me point out that a lifetime of business experience should have made it easier for me to see the falsity of the economic theories on which communism is supposedly based, to see them more readily than might some scholar coming into that study from the academic cloisters. While a lifetime of interest in things academic, especially world history, should have given me an advantage over many businessmen in more readily seeing the sophistries in dialectic materialism. So I have felt, rightly or wrongly, that my grasp of communist purposes and even of their methods should have been more rapid than that of some of my patriotic friends who have gradually become staunch anti-communists. Yet almost every day I run into some whole new area where the communists have been penetrating and working quietly for years, until now they are in virtual control of everything that is done in that slice or corner of our national life. Again, an omission of 1 page. But as background for our further discussion, I'm going to ask for your patience while I make a much more general review with you of how far the international conspiracy as a whole has now gone and where we stand today. Now omit 12 lines, and from here on I must simply quote extracts, sometimes many pages apart, without giving you the background to which they belong or calling your attention to the size of our jumps ahead. But we do ask you again, in order to avoid confusion, please to remember that all of those lines were written and then spoken in the fall of 1958. Section 1, look at the score. Throughout all history, the bearer of bad news has been a most unpopular person. So I certainly am not seeking any garlands of popularity at present. For the truth I bring you is simple, incontrovertible, and deadly. It is that we are living in America today in such a fool's paradise as the people of China lived in 20 years ago, as the people of Czechoslovakia lived in a dozen years ago, and as the people of Iraq lived in only yesterday. And as George Santayana so brilliantly pointed out, those who will learn nothing from history are condemned to repeat it. Lenin died in 1924, but before he died, he had laid down for his followers the strategy for this conquest. It has been paraphrased and summarized as follows. First, we will take Eastern Europe. Next, the masses of Asia. Then we shall encircle the last bastion of capitalism, the United States of America. We shall not have to attack. It will fall like overripe fruit into our hands. To make doubly clear what he meant and how firmly he meant it with regard to taking Asia ahead of Western Europe, and then using Asia as a stepping stone and base from which to conquer Western Europe and the rest of the world, the strategy was also stated that for the communists, the road to Paris led through Peking and Calcutta. Today, you can easily see how that road to Paris is leading back from Peking through Calcutta, Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad, and Algiers. Now, gentlemen, there are many remarkable things about that three-step strategy, but the most remarkable is that the communists have never wavered from it one iota. They have used the philosophy of socialism as an ideological weapon in this struggle whenever they could and for whatever it was worth. But they've also used bribery, lies, bluff, brutality, the countless tentacles of treason, murder on a scale never before dreamed of in the world, and every possible means to advance them on this road without the slightest concern for any moral difference in those various means. And above all, they have used patience. A patient gradualism has been the most important key to the communists' overwhelming success. And in October 1950, Stalin's lackeys formalized their puppet state of East Germany. By this time, of course, there were other takeovers going on in other parts of the world, as we shall see. But we are dealing here only with Europe, and East Germany finished the job there as it had been planned by Lenin 26 years before. The communists now had Eastern Europe entire, and the first step of their three-step program was complete. Next was Asia. Actually, the anti-communist position is crumbling rapidly everywhere in Asia. If you will look at a map of Asia with all of these countries properly shaded, I think you will agree with me in my estimate of the communist progress. It is that they have already gone 3/4 of the way towards the completion of the second step in their three-part program. Now let's consider the rest of the world. It is with the benefit of this realistic background, therefore, that I venture to offer the following opinion. It is that the communists, through long and careful and insidious preparation, have already gone at least 1/4 of the way towards the accomplishment of their third and final step, which is taking over this country. And with it, of course, the rest of the world. Now, 1 + 3/4 + 1/4 adds up to 2 out of that total of 3. And not to believe that the communists are already 2/3 of the way towards carrying out their total program, or that they are not now moving at an accelerated pace and with increased momentum to finish the job, is to close your eyes to the plain facts, as surely as did the good people of Czechoslovakia in 1948, and with the same, ultimately, fatal results. Now, please note, gentlemen, that the communists have never made any of this immense progress by the direct use of force. They have beguiled Chinese into fighting Chinese, Koreans into fighting Koreans, Vietnamese into fighting the French and each other, the Israelis, British, and French into fighting Egyptians, the Algerians into fighting the French. They have even maneuvered Americans into fighting Chinese communists in Korea with the Americans' hands tied behind their backs. But not one Russian regiment has ever taken part in any of this imperialistic advance, except for the suppression of rebellion in already conquered territory, as in Hungary. There are 3 possible methods by which the communists might take us over. One would be by a peaceful coup d'etat, as in Czechoslovakia in 1948. The second method would be by fomenting civil war in this country and aiding the communist side with military might. But there is a third method, which they are clearly relying on most heavily, and this is taking us over by a process so gradual and insidious that communist rule is slipped over so far on the American people before they ever realize it is happening. The process in that direction is going on right now, gradually but surely, and with ever-increasing spread and speed. A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. But another part is the conversion of the United States into a socialist nation, quite similar to Russia itself in its economy and political outlook, before police state enforcement is ever introduced. The best way to explain the aim here is simply to quote the directive under which some of the very largest American foundations have been secretly but visibly working for years. This directive is so to change the economic and political structure of the United States that it can be comfortably merged with Soviet Russia. Now, here are the communist aims for the United States. 1. Greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2, higher and then much higher taxes. 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. 4, wild inflation of our currency. 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6, greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied, naturally and automatically, by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states.
Hey, by the way, if you just joined the program, you'll see all the thumbs down. That's not meaning, oh, we want to be communist. I get a thumbs down before every program starts every day. And so to show solidarity to the haters who are always going to hate, I've asked everybody to undo their thumbs up and help the little lonely thumbs downers that have their mission to be in the program every day, help them do it. So in the past, the most we've ever had was like 12 thumbs down. I was hoping for 13. We're now at 91. But isn't this history? Isn't this interesting? That's why I'm playing it. And he's talking about what we knew 67 years ago. Keep watching. We're not even partway through it.
8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace. Peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and of the United States itself. In summary, gentlemen, we are losing, rapidly losing, a Cold War in which our freedom, our country, and our very existence are at stake. And while we don't seem to know we are losing this war, you can be sure the communists do. There is just one thing, only one thing in the whole world which the communists fear today. It is that despite their tremendous influence in our government and over all of our means of mass communication, the American people will wake up too soon to what has really been happening and what is now happening right under their very noses. The only thing which can possibly stop the communists is for the American people to learn the truth in time. One matter on which most Americans need to become better informed is what being subjugated by the communists or arriving at an accommodation with communism, as they want it called, would really mean. For their cruelty and terrorism is almost beyond imagination. And the domination of our press, television, and radio by communist influences is now so great that you simply are not allowed to learn or to be reminded of the real nature of the beasts to whom we are losing. General Mark Clark, for instance, officially reported from Korea, quote, "We obtained solid evidence that the communists slaughtered 11,622 members of my command while they were defenseless prisoners of war. These men were tied to their fellow prisoners and transported to previously selected sites. They were dumped alive into trenches dug for the purpose and summarily shot. About 5,000 of those boys were from your hometowns and mine. But how many of you ever saw that report in your headlines or anywhere else? During the so-called Spanish Civil War, the London Times, which then as now certainly was not slanted in favor of the anti-communists, reported that in one 12-month period, the communists had murdered over 4,000 priests in cold blood and had driven more than that many nuns out into the streets of various Spanish cities, inflicted horrible obscenities on them, and then murdered the nuns. In some places, the communists herded priests and their congregations into churches, set the churches on fire, and burned the Christians and their buildings together. These and similar epic cruelties of the period are facts documented beyond all question. But how many of you have ever heard them? All of this vicious and purposeful savagery that I have been trying so inadequately even to indicate is not something happening on some other and far-off planet or perpetrated by the Assyrians 2,500 years ago or dreamed up as the imaginative nightmare of an Edgar Allan Poe. These, gentlemen, are the very real acts and deliberate policies of the recent past and the very present, of people whom we treat as human beings and with whom we sit around conference tables and arrive at truce terms and concessions to appease them. There are some 700 million non-Russian, non-communists now living daily lives of virtual slavery behind the Iron Curtain. Some 40 million of them in the actual slave labor camps of Russia and Red China, who only a dozen years ago, or much less, enjoyed practically the same personal freedoms as do you and I today. These people now say to each other, but above all to themselves, if I'd only known, if I'd only believed, there is no amount of work and sacrifice and suffering I would not have given if I'd only realized the necessity, the danger in time. Now it is too late, and any amount of struggle and of sacrifice, even of life itself, is all in vain. Unquote. The number of people subject to these cruelties is now increasing by tens of millions every year, and we are directly in the path of the conqueror. Are we really so hopelessly blind, so stupefied by prosperity on one side and the insidious propaganda on the other, that we cannot even see the wolves devouring the carcasses of our brothers or drawing ever nearer to ourselves? Are we going to let our country and our whole civilization go under and new dark ages of serfdom be ushered in while we happily play at our little games? May God forbid. But may we speedily become more worthy that he should. Section 2. But let's look deeper. Now, if the danger from the communist conspiracy were all we had to worry about, it would be enough. But in my opinion, the first great basic weakness of the United States, and hence its susceptibility to the disease of collectivism, is simply the age of the Western European civilization. Some of you will already have recognized, in fact, that I am drawing a corollary to the conclusions usually connected with the name of Oswald Spengler. Spengler's theory is absolutely fatal to the acceptance of socialism or any form of collectivism as a forward step or as a form of progress in man's sociological arrangements. For in Spengler's view, collectivism is a disease of society, concomitant with decay and remarkably similar to cancer in the individual. The Roman Empire of the West, for instance, started dying from the cancer of collectivism from the time Diocletian imposed on it his New Deal. And it is perfectly evident, right in the cases of the various civilizations that we know most about, that both the Greek and the Roman civilizations did perish of the cancer of collectivism, and that the civilization of Western Europe is doing so today. It was Western Europe which made the last half of the 19th century the period of the highest level to which man has yet climbed in his struggle to reach an enlightened and humane life. But, as so often happens for the individual, by the time Western Europe had the knowledge, the wealth, and the ability to get the most out of life, it was ready to die. The truth is that by a cycle which seems inevitable, whether it is a biological reality or only an analogy, Western Europe was worn out. And under those circumstances, the degenerative disease of collectivism, the cancer of social organizations, began its peripheral infiltration. The American civilization was every bit as much of an entirely new and different civilization from the old and ancestral one of Western Europe as was Rome, a new civilization distinct from Greece. And this American civilization at the turn of the present century was only 300 years old. It had the strength and vigor and promise of a healthy young man in his late teens. There was no reason on earth for any such organism to be attacked by and then start succumbing to the cancerous disease of collectivism at that stage of its young manhood with its whole lifespan of accomplishment before it. But we have the cancerous disease of collectivism firmly implanted now nevertheless. We have people feeling that nothing should be done by them, but everything for them by the government. Its disastrous ravages are quite far advanced. And we have it basically because of too long and too close an association with a parent that was dying of the disease, that was old enough and weakened enough for the virus to be rampantly active throughout this parent's whole environment. When Woodrow Wilson, cajoled and guided even then by the collectivists of Europe, took us into the First World War while solemnly swearing that he would never do so, he did much more than end America's great period of happy and wholesome independence of Europe. He put his healthy young country in the same house and for a while the same bed with this parent who was already yielding to the collectivist cancer. We never got out of that house again. We were once more put back even in the same bed by Franklin D. Roosevelt, also while lying in his teeth about his intentions. And we have never been able to get out of that bed since. Push the communists back. Get out of the bed of a Europe that is dying with this cancer of collectivism and breathe our own healthy air of opportunity, enterprise, and freedom. Then the cancer we already have, even though it is of Then the cancer we already have, even though it is of considerable growth, can be cut out. And despite the bad scars and the loss of some muscles, this young, strong, great new nation, restored to vigor, courage, ambition, and self-confidence, can still go ahead to fulfill its great destiny and to become an even more glorious example for all the earth than it ever was before. It should be centuries from now before the natural time comes for the decline of America and for the highest torch of civilization to be taken over by the rising newer nations to the west. But we do have to achieve the sufficiently drastic surgery, and that, of course, is a Herculean task. We shall return to a study of it when we come to the more positive part of this program. Section 3, and deeper still. Now, gentlemen, in looking thoroughly and realistically at the danger to everything we have inherited, spiritual as well as material, and at the cause of that danger, we come to the second of the fundamental reasons for deep and basic anxiety. And putting that matter bluntly at once, the reason is simply loss of faith. Not just loss of faith in God and all his works, but loss of faith in man and his works too, in his reasons for existence, in his purposes, and in his hopes. Let all of us thank whatever God we severally worship, that there is so large a remnant of the really true believers still left. We honor them. We need their steadying adherence to the rock of reverence and their aspiration of unwavering obedience to ancient and divine commandments. We desperately need their unshakable confidence in absolutes, in eternal principles and truths, in a world of increasing relativity and transitoriness in all things. We admire them. In fact, as will become more clear tomorrow, the young man I admire most of all of those America has produced was a fundamentalist Baptist missionary named John Birch. But we must not let our admiration for, dependence on, and feeling of spiritual kinship with the fundamentalists blind us to the visible fact that their number grows smaller every year. Among the people literate enough and ambitious enough to be activists in Europe and America, those who are honestly true believers in a faith which most of them still profess is an ever smaller minority. What is far worse, fully 1/3 of the services in at least the Protestant churches of America are helping that trend. Some ministers have converted Christianity into a so-called social gospel, which becomes in fact indistinguishable from advocacy of the welfare state by socialist politicians. And some actually use their pulpits to preach outright communism, often in very thin disguise, if any, while having the hypocrisy as atheists to thank God in public for their progressive apostasy. We must not only know the truth, but face the truth if it is to set us free or to keep us so. Except for the diminishing number of fundamentalists of all religions, all faith has been replaced or is rapidly being replaced by a pragmatic opportunism with hedonistic aims. And what a fall that is for a race which can boast of once having listened to a St. Augustine, a St. Francis of Assisi, a John Milton, or an Alfred Tennyson. In Western Europe and America today, we are living in a spiritual vacuum, exactly as were the Romans after they had lost any real faith in their pagan gods and before the rise of Christianity. The most terrible result of this collapse of the rock of faith on which our morality was built is the rise of the amoral man, of which the usual communist himself is the most illustrative example. For the chief point of this whole present section of our discussion runs parallel to the main point in connection with the extent to which the cancer of collectivism has weakened and endangered us. Besides the short-term job of eliminating the communist danger, we have the equally important longer-range job of ending this mass psychological flight towards amorality and of restoring convincing reasons for men once again to strive to live up to moral and humanitarian ideals. Otherwise, there is no chance of saving our Christian-style civilization. Otherwise, there is no chance of saving our Christian-style civilization from self-destruction. And it will merely go down to chaos and the ultimate serfdom of the weak under the strong more lingeringly than if it is destroyed and its once free members are enslaved by the communists. We shall return to the constructive side of this need and this undertaking in the morning. Section 4. And so, let's act. We come now to the question of what is to be done about these problems. The very first thing we must realize is that there is no easy formula possible, nor brilliant scheme devisable for beating the communists. The conspiracy is now incredibly well organized. It is so well financed that it has billions of dollars annually just to spend on propaganda. It has the benefit of decades of successful experience. It has one set goal of world rule by any means, to which every act and all of the lives of some 40 million party members are now wholly subservient. And it is guided by men who had to have supreme cunning and ruthlessness to have achieved their present positions within the conspiracy itself. The human race has never before faced any such monster of power which was determined to enslave it. But there is one basic consideration of tremendous importance which we must always keep in mind. This is that communism has been imposed and must always be imposed from the top down by trickery and terror, and that it must then be maintained by terror. Truth, reality, human instinct, and the overwhelming weight of human desire are on our side. We have these points in our favor against a conspiracy which must depend on falsehood, cunning, and terror, utilized by less than 5% of the total population. To feel that we cannot win that struggle is a form of pessimism to which I, for one, shall never yield. What I have chiefly intended this brief introduction to lead to, therefore, is the realization that every effort we undertake, every battle we fight, even if we lose it, and every sacrifice we make is cumulative. Every bit of dedication to the cause is worthwhile. Obviously, the place for us to begin is in the United States, because the American support of the international communist conspiracy is now the backbone of its strength and has been for many years. If and when we can reach the point of turning just the American government from actively helping the communist conspiracy everywhere in the world, we shall have won a most important battle in the war ahead. The amount of work required to do that in the face of the way the cards have been so painstakingly stacked against us is something to contemplate. And yet there is nothing but work and more work, thinking and more thinking, dedication and more dedication, which will do the job. So now let's look at the job itself. First we would establish reading rooms, small and inexpensive, in just as many of the cities, towns, and villages of this country as we could, just as rapidly as we could. Second, since getting the truth about both recent history and current events into as many hands and heads as possible is so important, we would see that the circulation of the conservative periodicals was expanded as rapidly as it could be done without too much waste. 3, we would do everything we could to support, maintain, increase the number of stations used and widen the audiences of such radio programs as those of Fulton Lewis, Clarence Mannion, and dozens of more localized broadcasters throughout the country. 4, we would institute the organized planning and control to make full and effectively coordinated use of the powerful letter-writing weapon that lies so ready at hand. 5, we would organize fronts, little fronts, big fronts, temporary fronts, permanent fronts, all kinds of fronts. 6, another thing we should do, and one badly needed, would be to start shocking the American people, or an increasing percentage of the more literate and more intelligent, who have not yet been completely brainwashed, into a realization of what is happening, into a dawning realization of how far and how completely communists and communist influence have crept right into their communities, into institutions and activities where the general public does not have the slightest suspicion of such infiltration. The best way to do this is by exposure, which is why the communists just had to get rid of McCarthy and went to such extreme lengths to do so. 7, there are now dozens of slimy characters at loose in our midst, whom I'll call to your attention by describing one, who is more or less typical. His usual name is Gordon Hall, though he also uses and has used many aliases, and we could silence him and those like him with comparative ease. 8, we would line up a large list of speakers ourselves all over the country. 9, ninth and current in this listing would be our undertakings on the international front. For many reasons, we would start extending our body into other countries as soon as there were energy and resources which could properly be spared for that purpose. 10, finally, and probably most important of all these courses of action, we would put our weight into the political scales in this country just as fast and far as we could. We are at a stage, gentlemen, where the only sure political victories are achieved by non-political organizations, by organization which has a surer, more positive, and more permanent purpose than the immediate political goals that are only means to an end, by organization which has a backbone and cohesiveness and strength and definiteness of direction which are impossible for the old-style political party organization. Fantastic? Of course it's fantastic, but everything I am talking is fantastic. We are living in fantastic times and a fantastic situation. The alternative to sufficiently fantastic measures and efforts is a fate of fantastic suffering for our children and the equally fantastic loss of a whole humane civilization that has cost countless sacrifices, immeasurable labor, and an infinite number of noble dreams across centuries in the building. We are in circumstances where it is realistic to be fantastic. I was careful to bring into this group only men of sufficient intelligence and imagination to understand that paradox. And tomorrow morning, I hope to make the realism of this afternoon's hypothesis and these proposals at least as believable as is the unbelievable present power of the forces of evil arrayed against us. May you have a good dinner, a little surcease from such serious thoughts, and a good night's sleep in the meantime. Section 5, under positive leadership. This morning, in retracing our footsteps, we come first to the cancer of collectivism, to the question of how to stop its further ravages and how to restore the American body politic to good health, renewed strength, and as much promise for the future as is possible in view of the damage already done. And that, gentlemen, brings me to one of the basic purposes for which this meeting was called. It is one which I approach with great humility, but with no misgivings as to its necessity. For we simply are not going to be able to save our country from either the immediate threat of communism or the long-range threat of socialism by organizational leadership. Our only possible chance is dynamic personal leadership. Let me begin with an illustration of the difference which also supports the argument. In 1952, I disagreed with Bob Taft on at least 3 of his 10 most important political principles. Yet I had made 25 radio speeches for Taft in the primary campaign on my own time and my own money. I was wholeheartedly and enthusiastically for Taft, for the nomination and the presidency, because I trusted him and he was going generally in my direction. The fact that he didn't see 2 or 3 issues out of 10 the way I saw them didn't dampen the energy of my personal support for him in the slightest. But if and when I am a member of any organization, political or otherwise, and there is disagreement on the part of any sizable percentage of the membership as to 3 out of 10 of the organization's policies or planks, a splintering of the organization into 2 groups is almost inevitable. Personal leadership holds together a following in the way that organizational leadership never can. At present, we are in the position of trying to defeat a disciplined, well-armed, expertly commanded army with a collection of debating societies, and it can't be done. So let's look briefly at the possibility, the advantages and the disadvantages of finding this desperately needed leader in the political field. And the easiest way to do this is to conduct a discussion around some individual from the very start. Now, the one man who comes nearest to measuring up to all the needs and qualifications whom we see on the political horizon at the present time is Barry Goldwater. I know Barry fairly well. I'd love to see him President of the United States. I'd love to see him President of the United States, and maybe someday we shall. But does anybody in this room think there is any slightest chance of Barry Goldwater supplying the dynamic overall leadership needed to save this country for anybody to be president of? If so, I think he is still not fully aware of the nature and totality of the forces at work. For Goldwater, by the very circumstances of his political success, present prestige, and the expectations of his supporters, will inevitably think and move in terms of political warfare. Even if he personally should reach the point and the understanding of wanting to consider political action as just a part, no matter how important, of much broader overall action, how much chance do you think there is that his friends and supporters would let him step out of the strictly political role in which he has been so successful? How much chance is there that they would let him build and utilize forceful leadership on all of the other fronts where we must fight the communists? How many of the steps which we discussed yesterday afternoon, and which I am sure must be taken if we are to have any chance at all, do you think you could count on Barry Goldwater's leadership to bring about, no matter how?
Is this not amazing? And by the way, do not get alarmed at the thumbs down. I asked for thumbs down. I asked. Even before my program starts, I'll get 1 or 2 thumbs down, and the program hasn't even started. And so I don't want to leave anybody out. And so I asked everybody to embrace the people that are always negative, hating on me for whatever reason. And everybody today, give me a thumbs down. Well, our highest used to be 12. Now we're at 103. I want to see them all thumbs down. I want to see them all thumbs down. Right? And let's make people look like, what's so fucking rotten? I got to look. Let's turn it into a car wreck. It's totally fine. Anyway, is this presentation not absolutely fantastic? It's a 1958 speech being retold in 1974. And they're reading part of it. And this was a meeting that everybody knew this was coming. I've done programs on this before. Everybody knew this was coming, but nothing was done. This is the plan being read to you that we knew 67 years ago. Wait, would it be 67? No, it'd be more than that. It'd be 69 years ago. Still a lot more. Hang on to every word. This is the truth of what we've been under. And yes, if he gave me on Rumble, whatever, if he gave me on Rumble, or go to Rumble because that's where I'm tracking it, right? And most of you saying it's the first thumbs down I ever gave anybody. I'm in the same boat. I gave myself a thumb down, other people saying it. Conservatives don't go around giving thumbs down. You know what we do? We don't like something, we turn it off and we move. We go find something. But see, haters are going to hate. And so we're honoring the haters today. We're going to show solidarity with them. And this is probably one of the most important messages you have watched in a long time.
How much he was beseeched, and no matter how much he himself came to feel inclined to do so. More for the other illustrative points that will arise than for any hopes offered by the prospect, let's look at Richard Nixon in this connection. He's an extremely smart man. He is one of the ablest, shrewdest, most disingenuous, and slipperiest politicians that ever showed up on the American scene. He can sit in Washington one night and convince some of the most modern Republicans that he's the best ball carrier they have, and spend 4 hours in the Waldorf Towers the next day convincing MacArthur and Herbert Hoover that he is their man. He can use the tremendously overrated and overpublicized, but actually highly cautious part he played in the Alger Hiss exposure to hang on to the hopeful loyalty of the vigorous anti-communists at the very time when he is insinuating himself into the good graces of the left by quietly knifing McCarthy. Nixon could pose as a conservative Republican congressman and yet be one of the original founders in 1950 of Republican Advance. This was intended to be not the Republican opposition to, but the Republican teammate of Americans for Democratic Action. And it even had some interlocking left-wingers who were members of both groups. Nixon can claim still to be vigorously anti-communist, yet when he has a chance as vice president to break the tie and cast the decisive vote for H.R. 3.
You're hearing things, right? You're hearing things that might be shocking to you, but remember Nixon opened up us with China. He's saying the same thing, that they play sides, they play politics. It's not about us. Doesn't matter if they're Dem or Republican. That's where the merging began. Think about it. I can't post it on my Telegram because it's 2 hours long. We're only halfway into it. You can come back and watch this anytime. Don't watch. Watch as long as you want. You can always come back to it. Right? 117 thumbs down. Let's keep on going. Jackpot. Here we go.
To reestablish some chance of prosecution of subversives actually advocating violent overthrow of our government, what happens? He moves heaven and earth to have Wallace Bennett found and pressured into voting against H.R. 3, defeating the measure so that the vice president will not have to vote. What good would such a man be to us even as president unless outside forces and accomplishments made it opportunistic and expedient for him to ride an anti-communist wave which those outside forces had created? As for being a leader, the sad truth, hard for many hopeful and wishful conservative Republicans to realize, is that Richard Nixon, a most engaging personality and clever politician, has never been a leader in connection with any event or development or at any stage in his career. He has been a rider of waves so far as public support was concerned and a manipulator of uncanny skill behind the scenes. I have made these remarks here in this really inner circle group in order to emphasize the wisdom of the old advice, put not your faith in politicians. I am thoroughly convinced that we cannot count on politicians, political leadership, or even political action, except as a part of something much deeper and broader to save us. Now, I didn't always feel that way, and I think that up to the time